We've all heard of Outfit7. They're the creators of Talking Tom, Talking Ben, Talking Angela, and all of the other Talking Friends games. The games are so popular and ubiquitous that if you haven't heard of them, you've probably been living under a rock for the past 15 years. But what if I told you that Outfit7 had a company that published tons of games you probably haven't heard of? This is Fun Network, and you might notice some similarities between its logo and Outfit7's logo at the time, mainly the fact that they both have the same smiley face. Fun Network was created in 2011 and was shut down in 2014, and in their time existing, they published over 10 games. So let's take a look at some of these games. The first game I'd like to cover is House of Mice, released on the 28th of July 2011. This game was a 2D fast-paced puzzle and action hybrid. In this app, you test your speed and ability to solve puzzles and help the mouse steal cheese and defeat the cat. The main gimmick was the fact that you had to swipe to launch the mouse in different directions, destroying boxes and taking cheese. The art style reminds me a lot of Cut the Rope. It's a super stylized game and has really cool sound effects and music, and I honestly wonder why this game wasn't more popular. The next game is Ticklefinger in the Jungle, and you might notice that this game was aimed at very young audiences just from its art style, much younger than the audience for House of Mice. This was a simplistic game that played a lot like a children's book. You follow the tiger around a jungle and explore, finding new animals and learning about them along the way. To defeat the animals, you had to tickle them, which is a very kid-friendly way to defeat them. There was really no challenge to this game whatsoever, but it's nice to see that Outfit7 was making games that were actually meant to educate little kids while being more fun than a traditional book. Our next app is the Smelly Sprout, and what I ended up realizing while making this video was that this actually existed as a real-life book. And what Outfit7 did was make an interactive version of the book that followed the same story as the book but with some gameplay elements. This falls in line with the trend writing that Outfit7 was doing back in the day, since interactive children's books were very popular in the early 2010s, so it's only natural that Outfit7 would do the same. What you'll notice in the logo of these interactive books is that the icon itself is inside of a book, so we have a bunch of these interactive book apps like Princess Chocolate, The Giant Boy, Ticklefinger Under the Sea, Little Red Riding Hood, and Ticklefinger and the Dinosaurs. Now, I'm not gonna go through every single one of these interactive book apps since we kinda get the point, and going through every single one would stretch this video out way too long, but it's cool seeing all of the other genres of apps Outfit7 was trying to make back in the day. Outfit7 and Fun Network kept making interactive book apps for a while until they decided to make Large Fruit Collider. This game was pretty fast-paced and a big change from their book apps. And it's a pretty unique idea. From what I understand, you are a fruit in a particle accelerator or collider, and you have to avoid obstacles and reach the end. The movement in the game reminds me a lot of the Run series on Cool Math Games, which I absolutely loved as a kid. This game released in October of 2012, and like the others, stayed extremely obscure. If you look up gameplay videos of this game right now, you'll find like 3 videos, which combined have a total of like 200 views. So it's kind of crazy that even after all of these years, these games are still completely under the radar. The next game is Toy Balls, and that's pretty much it. Apart from a few screenshots, there is no download for the game, no gameplay videos, and nothing. This game released in January of 2013, and from the looks of it, it's a puzzle game where you connect balls to make them disappear, and you beat the level once you've cleared all the balls. You've probably played games similar to this, and it doesn't seem like a super unique game, but the fact that there's pretty much no information surrounding it is absurd. And as far as I know, this game is completely lost media. The next and final game that Fun Network released was Groove Racer, again being completely different to the previous apps they released. This game released in June of 2013 and was a simple 3D top-down racer game, with the only control being pretty much holding your finger down and letting go at the right moments, and trying not to fall off the track. Your car was placed on a groove, hence the name Groove Racer, and falling off the groove would slow you down by a few seconds. This game feels a lot like a Crossy Road type of art style, even though it was actually released before Crossy Road, and it's quite interesting that almost every single one of these games that Fun Network released had a different art style than the others, but unfortunately Fun Network ended up shutting down in 2014, taking down all of the games with it except for Groove Racer, which stayed up on the App Store for more than a year after the shutdown, finally being removed in 2015. And today, if you install the APK file for Groove Racer, the app is partially dysfunctional due to not being able to connect to Outfit7 servers. But why was Fun Network shut down. Now, Outfit7 never shared the official reason, which is pretty usual for them, but there are a few likely reasons, and the first reason is profit. The games that were released were mostly small-scale games, and with most of them being interactive books, they didn't really have much viral appeal. The second reason is the fact that a lot of these apps, especially the book apps, were paid, and with free-to-play games becoming more and more popular, there was no space for these games in the market. Another reason is brand focus. In 2014, when Fun Network was shut down, Outfit7's main Talking Friends series had become super massive. They were working on their own TV shows, new games, and merchandise, and that was bringing in way more money than Fun Network could ever bring them. They simply decided to put all of their resources into the Talking Friends series instead of Fun Network. And the last reason is licensing costs. Since a lot of these apps, especially the books, were based off of actual books, they likely had to pay the authors or publishing companies fees to keep the apps up. And with barely anyone downloading the apps, there was just no reason to keep paying. All of the apps by Fun Network barely left a digital footprint on the internet. There really aren't any reviews of the apps, and gameplay videos are few and far in between. It's like these apps barely existed, and for these reasons, Fun Network quietly shut down, leaving behind a small legacy for those who still look for it. Exploring Fun Network's history was quite cool. Taking a look into something that never truly got to flourish but was the hard work of someone is pretty interesting. Finding gameplay for these clips and seeing videos uploaded like 10 to 14 years ago with 30 views each is super weird. I don't think any of the gameplay videos had comments, and I honestly doubt anyone has made content about these games other than this video you're watching within the last 10 years. If you've played any of these games at the time when they were still in the App Store, let me know in the comments. I want to know how many OGs we have watching this video. Anyways, a like and sub would be truly appreciated, and comment down below what video you'd like to see next. See ya!